In this lesson, we're going to talk about similar triangles. We've already talked about similar polygons. And what I want you to remember about similar polygons was for you to say that two polygons were similar, you had to check all the corresponding angles and make sure they were congruent. And you had to check to make sure that all the corresponding sides were proportional. Well, this kind of goes back to that same concept of day one of checking for congruent triangles. We first had to make sure that all the corresponding angles were congruent, and then make sure all the corresponding sides were congruent. So you had 6 things to check, and then the next day we came back and said, well, there's shortcuts. That's what we're looking at here today. On this first one, going with my back to if the green is true, then the red is true. So I notice I have 2 triangles, and I have 2 sets of congruent angles. Well, if I know that, then what else do I know about these 2 triangles? Now I'm going to come back here into Sketchpad, and I have a diagram. Now I made this a little bit different because I showed all 3 angles. But remember, if 2 angles of one triangle are congruent to 2 angles in another triangle, then the third angles are also congruent. So that's why I'm showing all 3. Now as I move it, the angles are going to stay congruent. What I want to show you here is there are all the side lengths on my 2 triangles. I can change it and their measurements change. Now what I want to look at is I want to look at the ratio of the corresponding sides. Notice right now they're all equal. So think back to what it means to be similar polygons. All the corresponding angles are congruent, which we have check, and all the corresponding sides are proportional, which we have, then the polygons are similar. So right here, it doesn't matter how I move this, my corresponding angles stay congruent, my corresponding sides stay proportional, therefore these triangles are similar. And all I started with were the corresponding angles being congruent. Didn't have to know anything about the sides, which is going to bring me back here to say, well, if I know this, then I'm going to know the triangles are similar. And this is referred to as the AA similarity. My next one, now in this one I have 2 triangles, and what I'm showing with this picture is that the sides are proportional. Because notice I've taken every side from the triangle on the left, and I've multiplied it by A. I've multiplied it by a factor, a scale factor. So that's telling us that the sides are proportional, and if all the sides are proportional in my 2 triangles, what else are we going to know? So when I look here, I have my 2 triangles, I have the side lengths on there, but what I want to show you is, notice that all these sides are proportional. As I move this triangle, it's staying proportional to the other one. Well, if I show you the angle measures now, notice all the corresponding angles are congruent, and even when I move it, those angle measures stay that way. If I move this one, now the angle measures move, but they change, and they change on the other one as well. And notice my ratios all stayed proportional, or ratios stayed equal, which tells me then that if I know the corresponding sides are proportional, then I know my triangles are similar. Now this one's referred to as the SSS Similarity. Be careful with this one. Don't confuse this with the congruence one, because this one just says that the 2 triangles are similar. The other SSS says that the triangles are congruent. There's a difference. Now my last one, in this one, notice I have 2 sets of sides in the X and Y on the triangle on the left. Those are going to be proportional to the 2 sides on the triangle on the right here. I've multiplied both by A, so they're proportional. And notice the included angles are congruent. Now if that's the case, then I'm going to know my triangles are similar, and this is the SAS similarity. Again, be careful with this one. Don't confuse it with the SAS that says the 2 triangles are congruent. There's a difference. This one, the sides are proportional. In the congruence one, the sides are congruent. And that's going to conclude the lesson portion of the shortcuts, or what I call the shortcuts, to proving triangles similar.